of the problem with this election, that it's sort of like a false election in a way because it's foggy. The issues that are on the ballot, and for the longest time, trying to clarify, what are the issues on the ballot in this election? Yeah. It's very clear in other elections, whether voting for integrity, whether voting for Chapter 10 of the Constitution. There's always been a thing, at least maybe from 2010 moving forward. What's this election about?
You know, it depends on how, it depends on whether you want to look at it from, look at all the candidates together and try and assess whether there are issues or not, or try to be specific about the individual candidates and what they stand for. In all honesty, I think that this particular election seems to have been defined along the lines of we are fighting corruption, we are recapturing the state from the hands of those who have tried to loot the country dry, versus we want to improve the economy. It looks like it seems to be a battle between these two ideas of improving the economy and the fight against corruption. So there are two sections. There's Kenya Kwanza that believes that, you know, the biggest issue that the country is facing is the economic status that we are at as a country, the fact that, you know, Kenyans cannot, the cost of living being very high. And so for them, most of their propositions are, let's set aside money for this, let's set aside money for that, let's set aside money for the other. But then you have on this side, Azimio that believes that for us as a country, the main reason why we are where we are is because of the high level of corruption that we face, that we experience as a country. And by the way, it is not just an issue that is coming from nowhere. I mean, even global statistics have indicated that in terms of corruption, in terms of the corruption index, we are performing very, poorly. We are performing very badly, and we are at a critical state where if we could put a stop to corruption, then in one way or another, we could actually resolve even most of these economic questions that we are talking about. And we would establish sort of like an honesty culture moving forward, where we have a stable country, where we know that you earn, you earn what you work for, you get paid for what you work for. Basically, it's a culture where your efforts are rewarded, yeah? As opposed to a culture where once I'm in office, I decide who gets what jobs, who gets what tenders, you know, preferential treatment based on who you know. So I think that for me, it seems as if it's sort of like a very clear election, but the message is getting lost along the way as we are getting towards the end of the road. And I agree with him that, you know, we are now getting to a point where people are saying, how do we personalize this for you? You know, how do we make you vote from your heart as opposed to your head? And there's a danger to that, because ideally in an election, I should, until the last day, still ask you, why should I vote for you? And the answer should not be that my kids are going to be killed. I mean, if the answer is that my kids are going to be killed, how many, or rather I perceive that, I foresee that my kids' life is in danger. How many of us lose children during elections, you know? How many families have lost their loved ones during elections? If that is the answer, it should never get to a point where the personal reason why I'm voting for you is to protect you as an individual, because that is ideally where you're driving us to. I mean, if we are going by the argument that India is giving, that we are saying that now we are moving from issues and we want to give you a very personal reason why you should vote. If the personal reason is that I, as a candidate, vote for me because my kids' lives are in danger, what about us, you know? At the end of the day, because what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, these emotions that you are trying to whip up so that people can vote for you will not end after I have ticked or put a mark against your name. These are the emotions that will be sustained right after the elections. Because now people will be saying, oh, you know, you lost this election because the election was rigged. It is these kinds of emotions that we are trying to get out of the election. Okay. And if possible, I think that we as the electorate, I mean, personally, I think that we as the electorate are the ones who are failing ourselves by failing to put to account to these leaders that, look, we tell you, look, when you come to our place, please stick to the issues, tell us exactly what you're going to do for us. Till the end of the road, you know? Young people right now need to insist on continue telling us until the last day, what are you planning to do for us as young people, you know? As opposed to, what are your personal interests in this particular election? So I think that leaders need to remove what their personal interests are and continue focusing on the issues. And we as the electorate need to insist that, look, at this particular point, we don't care what your personal interests are. We want to know what are you going to do for us.
Look, we're going to get to the latest opinion polls released. And, you know, we're seeing the numbers sort of shift a little bit. But then again, 7 days, and we only have about 6 days for the homestretch campaigns. Does it change anything? Let me begin with Jim. Does it change anything? I mean, these 6 days, we've seen intense schedules from both the political camps, the Azimio camp and the Kenya Kwanza camp, and with the period of time that is left, and we've seen, you know, the numbers that sort of will be voting in what direction over the next, you know, in the next 6 days. But then these 6 days, will it change anything?
It definitely would. I mean, the latest opinion polls, I think they're placing Raila at 46, Ruto at about 44, and the undecided vote is being placed at about 5%. Now, that's the contest. That's where the real contest is. Because a lot of people who are going to vote for Raila or Ruto, they have already decided. But there's this silent majority, 5% of 22 million voters.
But are they undecided, or perhaps they're just shy of, you know, saying it and expressing it? Yeah.
Honestly speaking, because I work a lot with young people, I work a lot in the civil society space, and you work with young people. The reality is most of them are undecided and perhaps do not even see a reason why they should vote, because they do not see, they have not seen for the last 5 years how voting helps them. They have seen their parents vote their entire lives. They have not seen how their parents voting has changed the lives of their parents. And so, and then it's also tedious and tiresome. I mean, you're asking me to go line up the whole day. It's a lot more difficult. A lot of the undecided people are the young people, the first-time voters. Because those who voted before, voting is very habitual. Anyone who's voted before, it becomes part of your nature to just keep voting. But anyone who's voting for the first time, it takes a lot to actually get them out to vote. And that's why these last 6 days are important, particularly for that 5% who are undecided, because the politician has to do two things. One, convince them that there's a reason why they need to vote for them. But also, number two, convince that those even who have decided to vote for them turn up to vote. Because voter turnout has always been an issue. From 75, it always scintillating between 75 to 80%. How do we ensure that whoever needs to win needs to get 50% plus one? The opinion polls are not placing any of the candidates at 50% plus one. The secret is you need to get your people out to vote. If they don't get out to vote, then we are on for a runoff.